Hello, my name is Kathy Beatty with Divorce Support Anonymous, and I have a special guest with me today that's going to talk all about finances and lending and loans, all of those things that we need to know as we step into our new single life and have to do make some financial decisions maybe we've never made and had to make before. So joining me is Carri Goldring. She is a certified divorce lending professional. Good afternoon, Carri.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being here.
Absolutely. We are looking forward to this conversation, and I know those who listen will get a lot out of it. So let me ask to begin with, what exactly is a certified divorce lending professional?
For sure. So, my job is a mortgage loan officer, which means that I am originating mortgage loans for people who want to buy a home or refinance a home. I have a special designation called Certified Divorce Lending Professional, which gave me extra training and testing and ongoing coaching to specialize in people pre and post divorce, helping them get through the settlement or taking care of things on their settlement agreement that have to be done after the judgment of divorce, which may include purchasing a home, refinancing to get equity to a spouse, or refinancing to pay off debt or just to get a mortgage in someone's name. So all day long, I talk to people contemplating divorce or have gone through divorce, trying to help them rebuild financially through mostly the home mortgage.
And this is such a topic that terrifies so many people.
Right.
Divorce, especially typically women, but not always. Sometimes the men are absolutely clueless on where to begin this process and how to establish themselves financially. So let me ask you, what is the first thing a person should do financially when they realize that they are getting divorced? And that can be before they file. In fact, I wish you would speak to before they file and after they file.
Sure. Before they file, I think the more research you can do, the better, right? The more people you can talk to, the better. So you're interviewing attorneys, you're interviewing divorce financial planners, you interviewing someone like me who specializes in divorce. Maybe you talk to your estate plan attorney. Maybe you talk to someone regarding health insurance. So just gathering as much information as humanly possible, I think, is helpful. What a lot of people do is they always say, oh, I need to get ready to talk to you. So from my personal experience, they think they have to pay all their debt off, or they think they have to have a job, or I don't know. They come up with all these things that they think they better do before they talk to me. And it would be so much better if I can talk to them before they get ready to talk to me, because I may steer them in a different direction or give them information that they didn't know about. And pertaining to credit, a lot of people think they could close their credit cards and that's a good thing, where in fact, a lot of times that hurts someone's credit score when you're trying to build credit for getting a mortgage. So I would much prefer someone to talk to me and any other professional as soon as possible.
I love that. And to prepare yourself for it. So many people, the huge issue of divorce is the house.
Right.
And I know there are a lot of emotions tied up in the home, especially if you have children in the home and you're raising them there. But how do you advise people who, when you look at the finances, they can maybe keep the home, but they can't afford to stay in the home, so they'll be house poor? How do you walk people through that process?
Right. We do a lot of talking, and I work a lot in tandem with certified divorce financial analysts who do look at their debt and their assets and how long their support payments may last to help them come up with a budget and an overall picture. For mortgage purposes, especially since we went through that whole big foreclosure debacle, I think our guidelines are set up for success. So they're not going to have someone spend more than usually 43% of their gross monthly income on house payment, debt, car payment, whatever you have coming out the door. So I think that would allow most people to be able to afford to stay in their home. Now, granted, people could go to very expensive schools that we don't count, or, you know, have lavish insurance or vacations, you know, so we're not looking at everything that a financial planner would be, but for the most part, our goal is to set someone else up for success in the future. But we'll talk about, what do they pay now, how much money is coming in, what's going out, what does the payment look like, what happens if you rent, if you live with someone. So we'll go over all the different scenarios to make sure someone's comfortable before we do anything permanent.
That's awesome. Just to have someone to walk through those steps with, who is very knowledgeable, is
Right.
amazing.
Thank you. And it's nice because they don't have to worry about me knowing their family and friends. I have no one to talk to about their business. I'm not, you know, giving them opinions based on anything other than finances. So I think it's a really nice, safe place for someone to have their divorce team working with them.
Oh, that is awesome. So what is the best way to buy out the other party? So if I'm divorcing and I want to keep the home, maintain it, what's the best, and are there options, but the best way to do that?
So the first thing that we do is we pay attention to what's called the note and the actual document called the mortgage, which a lot of people get very confused on. So the mortgage is the instrument that gets recorded at the county that says, hey, there's a lien on this property. But when people talk and we say, are you on the mortgage? Who's paying the mortgage? We're not really talking about that piece of paper, the mortgage. We're really talking about the mortgage note, which is the promise to pay. So just clarifying those words, because they get very confusing. And just because you're on the note, the promise to pay, and the mortgage, you don't always have to be on both or none. So typically, if someone is married, they're going to both be on the literal document, the mortgage, but they may not both be on the note, the promise to pay. And that's just because you're at recording, you're saying, hey, I'm a spouse, I have a homestead right, I have to be aware that there's a mortgage on this property, or as a title holder, if you are on title to the property. So we want to look at that first. So if there's one party that's staying in the home and they're the only party on the note, they may not need to refinance because, quote unquote, the mortgage, which really isn't the mortgage, is already in just their name. Now, if someone is going to buy out equity from another spouse, or there's a home equity loan that was put on the home, then they probably do have to refinance, because we have to roll in the amount of the equity to have someone refinance to be able to pay the spouse that's leaving the house. And the equity loan may have both people's names on them. So we're looking at everything and discussing what does and doesn't need to be done. There's some government loans that are assumable, so maybe you don't need to refinance. Maybe you can assume a mortgage. There are different types of assumptions, some that will relieve the person leaving the home off liability and others that won't. So we need to be careful with that. So we'll discuss that as well. And when you're buying equity out of the home for someone else, when you're working with someone that's a certified divorce lending professional, for sure, would type up an agreement called an equity buyout agreement, basically saying, I'm going to buy the equity out of the house. You're going to sign a deed to me. I'm going to give you X number of dollars. And at closing, we're going to have the title company write a check to what I would call the outspouse, the person leaving, where a lot of mortgage companies who aren't divorce familiar would write the check out to the person who's doing the new mortgage. and expect them to give the money to the outspouse, which I'm sure you can imagine has caused and can cause some problems.
Yeah, it definitely can cause confusion very quickly. So that's a lot of options, and I can understand why someone needs to sit down with you and go through those, exactly where you're at on the note, the mortgage, the deed, and wow. So
I
there's a
ask
lot.
I ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, because you need to do that to get all of the options. And I love what you state that it's a confidential conversation. So if maybe you haven't even informed your spouse that you are filing for divorce, or maybe you're suspicious that your partner is filing for divorce, maybe you do want to sit down with Carri and have some discussion. A very
You
important.
brought up a good point though. If your spouse doesn't know, or if you're in like a domestic violence situation, if you call a mortgage company or a mortgage person that isn't divorce certified, they may not even think about the fact that you're going through a divorce and your other party doesn't know, or you're in an abusive situation. And when someone runs your credit for a mortgage, automatically the credit bureau mails something to your home saying that credit was run. And there's this thing called trigger leads where your information gets sold to other mortgage companies looking to buy business. So now your phone starts ringing left and right, saying, hey, I heard you inquired about a mortgage. And your current mortgage company may also be alerted that you're getting your credit report run. And if they have the relationship with your spouse and not you, they may call your spouse and say, hey, I just saw a credit report got run on your wife. Are you guys refinancing? Are you moving? What are you doing? Where that would be part of my questioning before I run a credit report, making sure I'm not putting someone in danger or making alerts that someone may be looking to do something. So that's another thing to be really careful about.
Absolutely. So can you do this in private without all of those triggers going off?
I can't run credit without all those triggers. So if that's the case, we just don't run credit. So then I'll ask more questions.
Right. Lots and lots of questions. So FICO score.
Mhm.
Some people don't have a real good FICO score or a non-existent because all of the finances were in the other spouse. How do you guide people to get it where they need it to be?
Right. So obviously, if I can run a credit report, that's the best scenario, right? I've had people say to me, I have no credit. And what they really mean is, I don't have any debt. So you may have credit, you just might not have current debt. And I had that happen yesterday where someone said, well, I don't have any credit. I don't know why you're going to run my credit report. And I ran it. They had a beautiful credit score. They just didn't have any debt. They were totally shocked. So I have to really be careful that what people say and how I interpret what they're saying may be a little bit different, or they may really be interpreting what I'm saying is different. So if someone has no credit, then we have to get them credit. So either they become an authorized user on a parent or a friend's account, they start opening up credit cards in their own name, but you really want to have 3 lines of credit on your credit report. The longer you have them, the better your credit score will be. So to establish credit for 6 months or a year is really important. You don't need your spouse's permission to open a credit card. So sometimes that's a good thing to do, even when you're in the divorce process, because sometimes that takes a year, and then you have a year to start building up your credit. There are times that I'll say to people, don't get off as an authorized user because we need your credit to look the way it does. And then as soon as you get your mortgage done, then let's get you off as an authorized user. So it might be just the timing of things, or paying debt down to build up a credit score. So there are like little tricks that I would know of what someone can do. If it gets over my head, I do have a professional person that I refer business to that his sole job is credit repair or credit improvement.
Wow, that's amazing to know and so helpful, because there are people who remain in abusive relationships, for example, just because of the finances. They are so overwhelmed by dealing with the finances, and they think, I don't have any credit, and therefore I don't have any hope of surviving this domestic nightmare that I'm living in. So,
Right. Very scary. The easiest way to get credit, not, the best way for long term, but to just go on someone else's credit as an authorized user. They don't even have to give you their credit card. They don't have to give you their account number. They can just add you as an authorized user to one of their accounts.
and it would need to be someone with really good credit, right?
Credit, you'd want someone with good credit and not a lot of debt. That would be your best scenario. So even my children, when they turned 18, I made them authorized users on all my credit cards just to start building credit up for them.
Oh, and did not have to give them the credit card itself.
No, I have them all.
Wow, that's so good to know. Wonderful. So I was just, my next question was bad credit. What are my options? You just explained that. There may be few who have to worry about capital gains when they sell the home, if they decide to sell the home. Any words of wisdom for them there?
Yes, they always want to talk to a tax accountant, right, or a CPA, which I am not. From what I understand, if you are earning over $250,000 as an individual person or 500,000 as a couple, you get to write that off. Anything over that, you're paying capital gains on. So there have been, and you have to, I want to say, live in the home for 2 of the last five years. But the IRS does have concessions for divorced people. So you could have a husband and wife who own a home, and maybe they do have capital gains that they're concerned with. Even though one of them is moving out of the home, you could choose to remain on title. And then when it sells, you each get $250 of capital gains before you have to pay any tax. And then as long as that person lived in the home 2 of the last 5 years while married, you still qualify. And they could even be remarried, and now you have another $250,000 to go towards that capital gain, even though that new spouse never lived in the home. So there's some things that you could do. And then sometimes you do have to pay capital gains, but there's also interesting things when you may stay on title because it's the right thing to do for capital gains, but maybe it's not the right thing to do for estate planning, which is why it's really important to get your divorce team together, because you have to look at things from all different, so it might make great sense tax wise, but not estate planning wise.
Right. Yes. Such necessary conversations to be had. So sometimes there are arrangements where, okay, mom and kids are staying in the home, dad's leaving, he's going to stay on the mortgage until the kids are raised. What are the liability implications for that situation? Is he liable for if something were to happen to the home, or
So it depends if they're both on the note or not. So if he's the only one on the note and he's responsible to make the payments, and as long as he makes the payments, all is good. The person staying in the house with the kids really has nothing to do with that, right? If the divorce judgment says she's responsible for the mortgage payment, even though his name is on there, now we have some risks, right? And I guess there could be risks in your other scenario too, because what if he doesn't make the payment and then they're going to foreclose on the house? That could affect her, right? But if she's making the payment, then usually the person who's on the note, who's responsible to pay, gets nervous because they're like, what if you don't pay on time? You're going to ruin my credit. So you have those things that come up. I do see spousal support payments where sometimes the judgment's written that dad will make the house payment and the balance of what he's supposed to pay in spousal support goes to the wife because he's all worried the mortgage payment will be paid late. And then when wife goes to qualify for a mortgage, because her total support payment didn't go to her, we can't use that as qualified income to qualify her for a loan. So that all the income has to go to her, and then she has to turn around and make the mortgage payment. And a lot of people who are responsible for the mortgage don't like that. So that gets a little bit tricky. Now, if they're both on the mortgage note and one's living in the house and one isn't, not only do you have the risk of late pays and ruining credit or foreclosure, but if someone files bankruptcy and they're relieved from the mortgage, now it goes to the other spouse who's totally responsible. So that gets a little tricky too.
I know when I coach people or in mediation, I want folks to get it as simple as possible, as clean as possible, to make that break clean, because it can get complicated so very quickly if you don't.
Right.
It's always the way that it works out, but that's always my goal, especially when I'm coaching someone, and I have more say than when I'm mediating, because then I really don't have say. But
Right.
just them, how can we simplify this, make it as simple and clean of a cut and break as possible, because life is hard anyway and is confusing anyway, so why add to that complication?
Right. And there's a lot of people right now who really like their low mortgage interest rates and their low mortgage payments and do not want to pay for a divorce and separating things and dividing up assets and then have to give up their interest rate. So I have seen a lot more couples stay on the mortgage, say they could refinance later. And as long as things work and go well, then great. But the minute they don't, it could get really ugly.
Yeah. And that's one of the many reasons why you should have a phone call and a sit-down meeting with Carri Goldring, because there are so many landmines you could step into in divorce in general, but especially in finances. And the big financial not burden, I guess, asset that we all have is our home. So
Right.
how important that it is. So Carri, talk to us about how you are open to having people come, sit down, ask you questions, lay out their life before you, and
Right.
action.
So when someone's referred to me, I will set up a phone appointment with them. I have a divorce workbook that I send out to, hopefully people will read it before they meet with me, and it asks some simple financial questions. So the more prepared I am for their first call, the better. Like to spend about 45 minutes with someone on the phone, and we're just talking. So I'm either explaining things, I'm asking questions, we're hopefully able to run credit. And usually by the end of the call, I can come up with a plan or at least an idea to go back to their attorney or their divorce team to talk about and work through, or a list of documents they should get so we can kind of solidify some information. And I do not charge to talk to someone. I don't have a retainer fee. And then I like to be involved as the divorce process goes on. So when they meet their attorney or their financial planner and they are making concrete decisions of knowing how much support payments are, who's getting this asset, then I want to solidify things on my end so that I could say, okay, now this is how it changes things for your housing. And maybe this is how we need things worded in your judgment so it doesn't count as a debt to you, or you're not going to be responsible. Or I like to give suggestions on the document itself and kind of help with the logistics of how does this work? I had someone yesterday say that, they were told that they have to sell their house in 30 days and then they're going to split proceeds equitable. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, so you're going to closing, you have a title company there, they're dividing up funds. What do they really have to look at to know how do they divide your funds? Or are they going to write a check to both of you? Well, they didn't talk about that and they didn't go through that. So he was able to go back to his attorney and say, I need things a little clearer so nobody has to put this up to a different interpretation than how you interpret this. So I could just talk and walk through little things like that come up. And then when someone's ready to make mortgage application to either refinance or go house hunting, we start the mortgage approval process. And the goal is that they want me to help them with their mortgage. And then I get paid by my employer to do the mortgage for them. But all the consultation I just do for free.
That's amazing. So you brought up a really interesting point, and something that we all should be watching out for is the difference between splitting the proceeds equally and splitting the proceeds equitably. Would you speak to that?
So equally would mean 50-50. Equitable is they had a spreadsheet. Wife's keeping a $30,000 car. He's keeping a $10,000 car. She's keeping savings. He's keeping 401k. So when push came to shove, their balance sheet was off. So when they're selling their home and they need to split funds, they're not going to split them equally because he's entitled or she's entitled to more money to make them equal when all is looked at.
Right. And that is something that can trip up a lot of people. I wish the word were a lot different.
Right.
So closely together, and it would be
Right.
very easy just to pass right over that, but it has huge implications.
Right.
So,
and it makes a big difference, right?
yes, absolutely. So Carri, this has been so helpful and so informative.
Good.
And I have your card right here and your phone number, but maybe we want to list that or state it, and I'll add it to the postings that I put on LinkedIn
Sure.
and Facebook as well.
Oh,
But if you want to go ahead and just, I have your number as 248-420-4524.
correct. And that is my cell phone. So anyone could feel free to text me or call me. Text works better for me because I'm on the phone a lot during the day. So listening to voicemails is a little tough. You can also email me, which is C, which is the initial of my first name, and then Goldring, which is my last name, and then 3 letters, UHM for UnionHomeMortgage.com.
Excellent. And I hope that those who are listening and in this process of divorce would take an opportunity to sit down with Carri and review where you're at right now and where you need to go, what you need to look out for. What a valuable service that you offer, Carri. Thank you.
I would love to help. I didn't have anyone going through my divorce, and this is kind of like my payback of what I felt was missing when I went through my own divorce. So I am thrilled and happy to help anyone that I can.
It's huge, and I appreciate your work. By the way, what are the interest rates going for right now?
That's a tough question because it just, how the child support formula, you're putting 13 different things in to come out with an answer. Well, that's kind of how the interest rates work.
Okay.
I had it give you a general number. I'd say mid-7s, low-8s.
Okay. Okay. Well, they're not the 2% they used to be, but they're still manageable, maybe.
Not double digits, right?
Exactly. When I bought my first house, it was 11%. So
Yes, mine too, which is crazy, right?
yes, absolutely crazy. Well, thank you again. And I will again post your information as I post this video. And I know that you will be a lot of help to even more folks because of this recording. Thank you very much, Carri.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it.
You bet. So this is Kathy Beatty with Divorce Support Anonymous, walking with you every step of the way through the trauma and after the trauma of divorce. Have a good afternoon.